Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Lieutenant Stephen Rogers here on the East Coast of the United States of America. Folks, tonight's a special broadcast. I hadn't planned to come on tonight, excuse me, but as a result of all the emails and messages we have been getting from Canadians in reference to what has taken place in their parliament over the past 48 hours, I was compelled to come on this evening. Now, we will be on tomorrow night, our regular Thursday evening Canadian edition of the Patriot Desk. But I want to share a few words with you this evening, I think that are very important. Getting a lot of emails and a lot of messages from people that are very distressed in Canada. Of course, there have been certain pieces of legislation that are not favorable, and then there have been those that are favorable to the cause of freedom and liberty. So I want to give you some encouraging words, because I know you're not getting a lot of the news that we get here in the United States with regard to your parliament and the behavior of Justin Trudeau. Folks, the Canadian people, the freedom fighters of Canada, those of you who have worked so hard within the framework of the law, you're winning. Believe me, you're winning. And I'm going to share with you tonight, I'm going to give you enough evidence, I hope, that convinces you that you are. So when I do get emails from people who tell me they're distressed, I understand it. When emails come and they say, well, this isn't really a win, it's just a cover up, or it's a crumb, or it's this or it's that. Well, folks, I've got to tell you something. It takes a long time to win a war, but little by little, battle by battle, we're going to take a piece of real estate every single step of the way with regard to this war against tyranny and this war against what I believe to be communist influences, not only in Canada, but of course here in the United States. So let's see what happened over the past few days, if you will. To begin with, the Canadian Parliament lifted temporarily, suspended, if you will, in their words, some of the foreign travel regulations. Well, I get it. I understand. People are telling me, well, it doesn't mean that much. It's just a crumb that was thrown to them. No, folks, that's not the case. What we are finding is that there is now a crack. There's a crack in the wall. We've got information, and I'm sure some of you already know this, that the Liberals in Parliament, those who have been supportive of Trudeau for Trudeau of the longest time, are now wavering on their support for him. I don't know if you've heard that. I'm sure some of you have, but they are wavering on some of the support for him, because they're getting fed up to their ears with what? With a lot of criticism around the world. And I've got it right here. I'm going to share with you some of the criticism. But it's a crack in the wall. You know, you begin somewhere. It's a crack in the wall. And so our belief is, and we said all along, that, you know, we're going to see some small steps taken on our side, victory here, a victory there, a little step there, a little step there. And then it becomes one giant leap for all of us. And I say all of us because the United States of America, and by the way, which I'll share with you tonight, some other nations have a vested interest as to what's happening in Canada. Justin Trudeau knows full well he is probably one of the most unpopular individuals on the face of the earth at this point. Those in the parliament who are supporting him know that their time is short, and I'll share with you what that means in a minute. So the fact of the matter is that we're winning. Now, I also want you to keep in mind, and we learned this kind of the hard way in the United States, that when people go on the internet and social media and they start downplaying what our victories are, the other side's watching this, and they're saying, "Hey, look it, they're falling into this this trap, if you will. They're falling into a mood that is never going to move them. They want you depressed. They want you distressed. These aren't crumbs, folks. And if they are, then I'll take them. I'll take a win. I'll take a victory lap. And I think we all should. We learned that, again, the hard way in the United States of America, where little by little we were winning, and a lot of people here in America saying, well, unacceptable. We want more. Well, it ended up that we have won so many battles that yesterday, for example, we were able to toss out a Democrat from the House of Representatives in a special election. A long-term Democrat in Texas is now gone. We have tossed out district attorneys, which are prosecutors, representing the Democratic Party in California. They're out of office. And we're going to, come November, and I've said this all along, we're going to show the world what we can do when we work within the framework of the law, and when we especially win battle after battle after battle. Now, the opposition is going to downplay that. But what I'm trying to share with you is, let us not join the opposition in downplaying every victory. Let's rejoice. Let's rejoice, folks. And let them be the ones with their heads down in shame. Now, I want to share a couple of things with you. Ronald Reagan in his time said this, that the future doesn't belong to the lighthearted, it belongs to the brave. So I want to ask those of you in Canada, because we're speaking about what's going on in Canada, and I'm responding to some of the emails. I want to ask you this. Are you all braver than Trudeau? I believe you are. I believe that you're the citizens of Canada who have faced this foe. I mean, with insurmountable odds against you, you stood up with strength. You stood up with vigor. You were tough. You were brave. It's not brave to be an individual in government like Trudeau or Biden or anybody else who could just, with the stroke of a pen, humiliate and intimidate his followers, because that's what these people in Parliament are, like our Congress, that are in his party and support him. They're cowards. They would never stand alone. You think they'd ever go and do the things you did? They're just not brave people. They're cowards. But what they do is they stand tall and tough. At least they try to project that image. And then you find out that when the real brave people, the real tough people, the real strong people, the truckers, the moms and dads, the teachers, and others in Canada from an entire spectrum of occupations, the shop owners, the small business people, you're the ones that are brave. You're the ones standing up to the tyrant, and you're the ones that are winning. They know that. That's why the crack is now in the wall. There's a crack there, and it's going to get wider and wider and wider. Now, I want to say this to you folks. Trudeau and his followers, Trudeau and those in Parliament who are supporting him, they remind me of Joe Biden here in the United States, where his followers and his supporters know something that they think we don't know. And you know what that is, folks? They're weak. They're weak. They're getting weaker, and they're falling apart. Justin Trudeau and some of his followers and those in Parliament, and I know some of you are watching, take a good look at what is happening to Joe Biden in this country. Not vis-a-vis the Republicans, but his own party supporters. They're beginning to distance themselves from him, and they're beginning to throw him under the bus, and they're beginning to little by little by little lose their power. Because the American people stood up. We stood up strong, we stood tough. And the Canadian people are doing the same thing. The Canadian people understand clearly, as we here in America, that those people like the Biden and their supporters and the Trudeaus and their supporters, their time is limited. They're going to be gone. They're going to be out of office. They are going to be weakened to a point where they will be on their knees. And guess who's going to remain standing? The free people of Canada, the free people of the United States. Why? It just so happens, folks, that we happen to be the individuals who have a future. Where is their future? Where, once Trudeau's gone, what's he going to become? An Uber driver somewhere? Because that's where he'll end up. Joe Biden, where's he going to end up? You know, I mean, look at, they're done. They've reached imagine reaching the peak of your life, and the only way you're going to go is down. I mean, down with reputation, down with character, down as one of the worst leaders in the North American continent ever in the history of our existence. But the people of Canada, the people of the United States, we the people of both our nations, we're not going down, we're just going up. We are rising up. And what they can't stomach, believe me, folks, I know this as absolute fact, what they can't stomach is that you all are working within the framework of the law. They know the law is on your side, but they never expected the Canadian people, never expected you to rise up the way you did and perform and work within your Charter of Rights and Freedoms the way you did, as within our country, the Constitution of the United States. So they have no future. Now, I'm going to share something with you about what Reagan said, that it belongs to the brave. You know, the future belongs to the brave. Now, people could doubt what I say. I'm a mere human being. But could you doubt what God says? And I know this will resonate with a lot of you. And I was thinking about this all day. I said, the Trudeau government, the Biden government, the government of tyrants all over this world, they don't believe, they could say all they want, they believe in God. I don't believe it. If they believe in God, it's not my God. But their foundation is on politics, is on political corruption, backstabbing, smoking the old cigars in the old back room, right? Patting each other on the back, doing favors. Well, I'm going to share something with you, folks. Been around for about 2,000 years or more, but it's something worth saying that when you build your foundation on what? The rock, as compared to your foundation on the sand, which is what? Political favors and corruption. Here's what happens. In Matthew, the 7th book of Matthew, verse 24 says, "Therefore, whoever hears these sayings of mine and does them, I will liken him to a wise man who built his house on a rock." Let's talk about the house of Canada. That's a big house. It's a great house. It is a strong house because the Canadian people are wise to God's word. They are building their house, as we are here in America, on the rock. And the rain descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat on that house, and it did not fall, for it was founded on a rock. Now, I'm going to challenge any Canadian out there, and Americans, you listen up too, because this goes for you too. I want to ask you, where have we fallen? Where has the house of Canada, of the free Canada, of the free Canadian people, and likewise of the American people, where has it fallen? It hasn't gone anywhere. You're still there. You are still there. Now let's talk about what's going to happen to those who build their house on another foundation. Now everyone who hears these sayings of mine and does not do them will be like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. Well, I'll tell you about two foolish men, Justin Trudeau, Joe Biden. There are a whole bunch of others around the world, but they're foolish because you know what they did, folks? They built their houses. They built their houses on the sand. And by building their houses on the sand, the rain descended, the floods came, and the winds blew and beat on that house. And guess what happened? Great was the fall of it. Now, I noticed something here. It doesn't say that, well, it was the fall of it. It said great was the fall of it. Completely extinguished from existence to the ash heap of history. So I'm going to ask you again, have you fallen? I don't see where the Canadian freedom fighters have fallen. In fact, you have gotten strength day by day by day. And the neat thing about all of this is that, well, we know it, but we're not the only ones who know it. They know it. In America, Biden knows it. That's why his entire administration is collapsing before our eyes. Trudeau knows it, and his administration and his supporters know it, and they are beginning to collapse before our very eyes. So let's move on. Let's move on and talk about what Churchill said. Churchill said during the toughest times, Britain was getting bombed, and my goodness, we asked today, where are our leaders? We should have leaders standing up for the people, and yes, calling the rallying cry for people to stand up, because we are strong and tough. But leaders need to stand up. Where are you? Leaders, stand up and start speaking the truth. If you're afraid, you're afraid. I get it. We're not afraid. That's why we're here tonight. That's why the Canadian people are standing strong and winning this fight. That's why the American people are winning this fight. So anyway, here's what Churchill says during the most difficult times that Great Britain was facing. If we are now called upon to endure what they have been suffering, we shall emulate their courage, and if final victory rewards our tolls, they shall share the gains. Aye, and freedom shall be restored to all. What's he talking about, Churchill? If we have to suffer a bit now because we're in the thick of the fight, then who's going to benefit from this? Our children and our grandchildren. So we're going to suffer a bit, just like the people that suffered years ago during World War II, World War I. Each of the problems that our nations had faced, they suffered. Talk to your grandmother, your great-grandmother. Talk to your father, your mother. Talk to anyone from past generations. Every generation suffered a bit. But because they stood strong, they found victory. And that's exactly what Churchill was saying. And what was in that victory? Get a load of this, folks. And freedom shall be restored to all. And isn't that what we're doing? Isn't that what you are doing in Canada? You're restoring freedom and liberty, for goodness sakes, as we are here in America. So together, that's why I say together forever, we're in the process of making history. We are restoring freedom and liberty that some tyrants are trying to take away from us. Well, in the history of the world, it doesn't work that way. They lose and we always win, but it takes a fight, takes a battle. Yeah, there are going to be days of discouragement, days where we're going to be depressed and we're going to think, gee, they maybe drew us a crumb. They're appeasing us. No, they're losing. They're losing, folks. Now, here's Teddy Roosevelt. I love Teddy Roosevelt. First police commissioner of New York City. Well, he says, do what you can with what you have and where you are. Believe you can, and you're halfway there. It is hard to fail, but it is worse never to have tried to succeed. I want to know where the Canadian people are who can honestly say that you have never tried to succeed. You have tried to succeed. And the great thing about it is you're succeeding. The Canadian people are succeeding as we are here in America against the tyrants that are causing all these problems, not only for our countries, but around the world. So, as Roosevelt said, we're going to do what we can with what we have and where we are. Well, do what you can. Well, we are doing what we can with what we have. What do we have? We have each other. We have the internet. We have a media streaming system where we can share information with each other. And where are we? We're in Canada and we're in the United States. Now, here was something that FDR said. When you come to the end of the rope, you ever hear people say, well, when you come to the end of the rope, hang yourself? Well, FDR actually said, when you come to the end of your rope, tie a knot and hang on. That's pretty nice, isn't it? Tie a knot and hang on. Because if you tie that knot and hang on, guess what? Another Canadian in Canada, another American in America is going to come along and they can grab your legs and help lift you up. But when the opposition comes to the end of their rope, you know what they do, folks? They take that rope and they figuratively put it around the neck of the person next to them and hang them, because they all begin to jump overboard. They all begin to blame the other guy for the problems that our nations are suffering. In other words, they throw people under the bus. That's what politicians do. To them, it's a matter of their personal survival. We, the people, it's a matter of our national survival. That's why when we see someone with a rope and they're tying it up and they're going to hang on, we're going to come over and help hang it on for them. And we're going to lift each other up. And that's what you've done in Canada. So again, tell me, what are some people upset about? You're winning this battle. Now, finally, we come to this fellow. Be strong and courageous and do the work. Do not be afraid or discouraged, for the Lord my God is with you. He will not fail you or forsake you until all the work for the service of the temple of the Lord is finished. Folks, that was King David. Now, he's talking about a temple. Well, I want you to think about something. We have big temples in this world today. We have a temple. I liken the temple unto a nation like Canada, like the United States. Every freedom-loving people lives in a huge temple, if you will. A temple is a place, all right? It's a place of worship. It's a place to pray. And yes, I believe there are houses of worship where we should all go and attend. But we also can worship in the great temples that he gave us, our countries, our nations. So I got to tell you something, folks. No way God's going to abandon his temple. Show me in the Bible where he abandoned his temple. Show me in the Bible where he didn't bless those temples and the people that went there, which tells me that the people of Canada are going to be blessed. Jesus said, I will never leave thee nor forsake thee. And what the Trudeau government and what the Biden government and every tyrant walking this earth, they don't have what we have. They may have the power of the law right now. They have the power of intimidation. Imagine how embarrassing some of these parliament members and these congressional members in America, how embarrassing it is for them. What are they going to tell their kids? What are they going to tell their grandchildren when their grandchildren read about how freedom was being taken from the people by them, by their grandparents, by their aunts and uncles, mom and dad who were in the parliament? What are they going to say? Because your kids are going to read history about them. And those of you who are watching or are in the parliament and who are in the Congress or your staff members, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. I want my children to read that their father, their mother, the freedom fighters stood within the framework of the law and made the Charter of Freedoms and Rights work and the Constitution of the United States work, because we fought and fought and fought and we didn't give up. And we won. And that's my point, folks, tonight. That's why I wanted to come on the air tonight. So when you hear people say, understand people get distressed. They get discouraged. Why? I don't blame them, because they don't get any good news. They get all bad news. And it's worse in Canada because your news is being operated by the government. Those journalists, they're not journalists. They'd be ashamed of themselves. Absolutely ashamed of themselves. We got a couple of stations here in America. I think PBS is one of them. After the next Congress gets in, I hope we shut them down. We shut down any government-operated news outlet. Now, if there's a news outlet that's private, and there are, and they condemn us, fine. Freedom of speech, go to it. You're going to lose anyway. In fact, they are losing. You see what's happening at CNN here, MSNBC, private companies, their ratings are so low, I'm surprised they even exist anymore, but they'll be gone. But here's my point, and then I'm going to wrap it up. To the people of Canada, you have a great and faithful friend in two places, without a doubt. You have a great and faithful friend in Jesus Christ, in God Almighty. Believe me, you do. Freedom and liberty are gifts from Him. He ain't going to let you go. He ain't going to let you down. It'll be a fight, folks. You read that Bible from cover to cover. It wasn't easy for those 12 guys. It wasn't easy for the women, Ruth and Naomi and Deborah and all those people in the Bible. It wasn't easy for Sarah and Mary. I mean, I could go up and down that list. It wasn't easy for them. But little by little, they won a battle here, a battle there, a battle here, a battle there. They won, folks. They won for a few reasons. One, they never gave up. They never gave up. And as Reagan said in his time, well, this fight isn't for the faint-hearted. It's for the strong and the brave. And these were brave people. Many of them were alone. And they had weapons. They did. King David had weapons of war. Joshua had weapons of war. But here was the most powerful weapon, the sword of the Spirit. Now, I'm in politics. I'm not a preacher. I'm not a minister. I leave that to the other people who God has called to minister to people. But I know full well in a world of politics and government that this is what makes you strong. Why? Because you stand on what? The rock. The rock. While those others in the Trudeau government and the Biden government and the other tyrants, they're standing on sand. If you notice in that scripture, the same wind came, right? The same storm came. The same hail came, right? Everything the same came upon the people who built their house, which is their nation, on a rock, and the people who built their nation and their future on the sand. But those who built on the sand, you know what happens? Bingo, the flood came, the sand was taken out to sea, and guess who went out to sea with the sand? So, folks, I'm going to tell you, be strong, be tough, don't be dismayed, don't be disheartened. So that was your one friend I just talked about, God Almighty. You have another friend. You have millions and millions of Americans who are standing with you. Millions of Americans. Now, we have our problems. In fact, I understood tonight, before I went on the air, sadly to say, two American fighters in Ukraine have been captured by the Russians. And from what we're being told, the Russians apparently believe in the death penalty. I hope that does not happen. I hope that does not happen, because only the Lord knows where we're going to end up. And I've warned the American people day in and day out, you've heard me, that Joe Biden's going to drag us into a terrible, terrible war. But our prayers are with those men from the United States of America, and our prayers are with people all over the world. But you see, we all have our problems, but we're not going to be distracted from the war we're fighting just north of our border, folks. That's where we should be fighting a war. And that war is against tyranny. That war is against authoritarianism. That war is against communism. We have a war going on the southern border, but not as quiet, not as subtle as the war on our northern border. And the war is against the Trudeau government. It's a political war. It's an ideological war. We just don't want it to creep over the border. In fact, not only do we want it not to creep over the border, we want to defeat it. We want to help the Canadian people defeat that enemy. And you're winning. You're winning. So little by little, inch by inch, step by step, one piece of real estate here, one piece of real estate here, one small step, all adds up into a giant leap, a leap into freedom and liberty, the restoration of freedom and liberty. So that's it, folks. I want you to be encouraged. Be encouraged. Be encouraged. Faith. faith is so important. Prayer is important. And kind of, talk with each other. Talk with each other. Make a phone call to a friend and, you know what, pray with each other. All is going to be well. All is going to be well. Freedom and liberty always wins. Always wins. That's it, folks. See you tomorrow night, okay? 7:30 p.m. I hope I was able to. Oh, before I go, folks, this is something that I will not forget. This is probably one of the most important things that I wanted to share with you. And let me just give me a moment, folks, and I'm going to find it. Hold on. Now, some of this you might know. I would say a lot of it you don't know. All right? Okay. It's terrible when you're looking for your glasses and you don't have your glasses to see. Found them. Now, this is important, folks, and then I'll wrap it up. So, some of you may not know this. Some of you may know it, but this is how far-reaching this fight for freedom in Canada has gone. Listen to this. UK Member of Parliament Marcus Fish accuses Canadian government of authoritarian measures. It's in the United Kingdom. U.S. Senator Marshall Blackburn accuses Trudeau of abusing his power. Investor and author Robert Kosaki says he stands with the freedom fighters of Canada. Author Douglas Murray says all UK parties should unite to condemn Trudeau. French journalist Francis Ruffin says Trudeau's liberalism is authoritarian. Brazilian politician and former attorney general accuses Trudeau of dictatorship. Dutch singer Tim Duwassa blasts horrible Trudeau. Christine Anderson, she was on our broadcast. She actually said that Trudeau is a disgrace for any democracy. U.S. Missouri Republican Josh Hawley asked his country's Commission on International Religious Freedom to consider putting Canada on its special watch list. And by the way, this week, we're not going to wait till July. This week, every single state legislature in the United States of America is going to receive a copy of the Ohio resolution and a recommendation from us that they pass a resolution putting Canada on a religious free watch list. So, and I could go on, and more countries are being added. My point is this, folks, is that the whole world was watching. Maybe Trudeau didn't understand it. The whole world was watching, and the whole world is coming down on his head. Work within the framework of the law, pray, exercise your freedom of speech, your freedom of worship, exercise it, and I emphasize within the framework of the law. At the end of the day, remember, we win, they lose. God bless you all. See you tomorrow night, 7 o'clock p.m. here at the Patriot Desk. Have a great evening, and God bless you all.